In an ordinary city lived a man named Endry. He was 34 years old, nothing special. An office job, the usual route, home, office, home. Rare meetings with friends on weekends, and a constant feeling that he was living a rough draft and that real life would begin someday later. Everything in his life was fine. He wasn't poor, he wasn't sick, he had a roof over his head. But inside, there was a undissatisfaction with himself. A guitar he had dreamed about since school was gathering dust on the shelf. On his desk was a folder called English, which he opened exactly twice a year. In his phone notes, there was a list of goals: lose weight, improve skills, read 1 book a month. Every year the list was rewritten from scratch, but in real life, almost nothing changed. Evenings were all the same: dinner, couch, phone. Endry kept telling himself the familiar phrase, "I'm tired today, I'll start on Monday, from the new month, from the new year." And every time, Monday, the new month, and the new year came without any changes. One winter evening, after another difficult day, he was walking home. It was around 10 p.m. Endry stopped by the 24-hour store near his house to buy something sweet, a reward for stress. In front of him in line stood a man about 60, wearing a sports jacket with a backpack. His face looked tired, but his eyes were lively and bright. The cashier smiled and asked, "Back from a run again? Aren't you cold in the evenings?" The man replied, "It's a habit. Once you run for 5 minutes, it gets easier after that." Endry smiled automatically, paid and left. But the phrase, "once you run for 5 minutes, it gets easier," stuck in his head like a splinter. All the way home he kept thinking about it. 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. At home, out of habit, he turned on his laptop, took out the sweets, and reached for a TV series. But that image wouldn't let him go. That man in his 60s runs in the evenings, and I'm 34 and out of breath, climbing to the 4th floor. Endry opened the Notes app and saw his list of goals again. And suddenly he thought, "I'm always waiting for the perfect day when I'll have an hour or 2 free in the evening. But don't I have 5 minutes right now?" The thought was so simple, it was almost funny. 5 minutes, not an hour at the gym, not 2 hours of courses, just 5 minutes. Endry set a timer for 5:00. He decided, "Okay, I'll do something useful for 5 minutes, and then I can watch shows the rest of the evening." He did the simplest thing, sat on the floor and started doing push-ups. He managed only a few. His breathing got heavy, his arms were shaking, but the timer was still ticking. For the remaining time, he just stretched lightly. When the timer rang, Endry felt something unexpected, a slight sense of pride. Yes, it was only 5 minutes, but he did it. He didn't postpone it. He didn't make excuses. He did it. Then he picked up the book that had been lying on his bedside table for half a year. The deal with himself was simple, at least 1 page. He ended up reading 3. But the main thing was that, for the first time in a long while, he hadn't wasted the entire evening. The next day followed the same old script: work, fatigue, the desire to switch off. But a new character had appeared in Endry's story, the 5-minute timer. It lit up in his memory like a small lamp. Let's do it again. 5 minutes, just 5. Again, a bit of exercise, a bit of stretching, a couple of pages of a book. 1 day passed, then another, then a third. Sometimes he really didn't want to. Sometimes he did his 5 minutes out of pure stubbornness, almost automatically, but he continued. After a week, he noticed something curious. When he skipped one evening, he felt uneasy, as if something was missing. Those tiny 5 minutes became his personal internal mark. I did something for myself. Over time, Endry started writing down what he did in his 5-minute journal. Then another important moment happened. One day, he started the timer, did his warm-up and push-ups, and realized he still had energy. All right, I'll go to 10 minutes. Days like that became more frequent. 5 minutes quietly turned into 10, then 15. After a month, Endry noticed in the mirror that his stomach had tightened a bit, and his shoulders were straighter. But the biggest change happened not in his body, it happened in his mind. He stopped thinking of himself as someone who never finishes anything. Each repeated day became small proof. I can keep the promises I make to myself. Those 5 minutes built a sense of self-respect inside him. He began using the 5-minute principle in other areas of his life. No energy to read, okay, just 5 minutes. Too lazy to study English, just 5 minutes. Don't feel like cleaning the apartment, 5 minutes, just one corner. And suddenly, life stopped being black and white, either a perfect day or a failure. Even on the hardest days, there was always a 5-minute window. And each time he chose that window, it was as if he turned his life 1 degree toward a better version of himself. 6 months later, he randomly opened his old notes and saw that same list of goals. He started reading it almost automatically and suddenly realized weight -9 kilograms. He had finally taken the guitar off the shelf and now played at least once a week in the evenings, even if just simple chords. English no longer felt scary. Over those months, he had learned hundreds of new words, 5 minutes a day through an app. And most unexpectedly, a kind of calm had appeared inside him. Not a perfect life, not an Instagram picture, but a feeling that he was no longer stuck in place. One evening, walking home, Endre saw that same man in the sports jacket again. He was standing with a bottle of water, catching his breath after a run. Endre approached him and said, "You probably don't remember me, but once you said, if you run for 5 minutes, it gets easier. That phrase changed my life a little, thank you." The man smiled and replied, "Life is changed not by big heroic acts, but by small steps we take every day. The main thing is not to stop." And now, as you listen to this story, maybe you recognize yourself in Endre. The same someday list. The same evening fatigue. The same excuses, no time, no energy, I'll start later. But the truth is, you don't need a perfect day to begin. You need 5 minutes. 5 minutes to do a few exercises. 5 minutes to read 1 page. 5 minutes to learn 5 new words. 5 minutes to take the first step toward a new version of yourself. And maybe in a year, someone will look at you and say, "Wow, how did you manage to change your life like that?" And you'll smile and honestly answer, "I just decided one day to give myself 5 minutes, and I never stopped after that." If this story resonated with you, if you feel ready to start with a small step, then right now, after this video, set a timer for 5 minutes and do something for yourself. Then come back and write in the comments which 5-minute action you chose. And if you liked this story, please support it with a like and a subscription to the channel. For you, it's just a few seconds. For me, it's huge motivation to keep creating inspiring stories like this.